go.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. We have some very exciting manufacturing leaders, thought leaders on the line here today. Just to get started, I will get us going with some housekeeping items. I'll be recording today's session and sending it out after, so no worries if you have to drop. Thank you again for joining. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andrew Walker, our CEO.
Okay, great. Thanks, Krissa. Good afternoon for some, good morning for others. Happy to have you here on our Start Now webinar here with Shift7. Randy Higgins, our Chief Strategy Officer, and myself will be moderating and facilitating today. And I'm just going to jump right in. We got an efficient 30 minutes here with some exciting topics, continue to bring you some insight and perspective here as we move forward. You know, on today's webinar, we're going to talk about the obvious, which is the pandemic and the disruption that is coming to all of our lives as well as our businesses. I've got two guest speakers that Randy's going to be interviewing that are really some true manufacturing executives that are doing some innovative things as it relates to online and digital experiences, which I'm excited for you to all listen, as well as at the end we'll have a Q&A on talking about what's next for manufacturing as it relates to the things they discuss. They're going to be fielding questions, and we're going to be opening it up to the group here today. So with that said, a couple opening remarks. You know, this disruption is not new to Shift7. You know, we call it the shift, and it is something that we feel very fortunate that we're engaging with B2B companies, primarily manufacturers that are looking to start their digital journey, looking to continue on that journey, or for others really accelerate and go faster with their transformation to a more customer-centric and digitally focused business. And at this point, I think many of us have seen this slide or cartoon, which you know, digital transformation is years away. I don't see our company having to change anytime soon with the wrecking ball coming in. And man, is this really coming to fruition in so many ways. We're in a fortunate position where we can see this happening, all kidding aside, in a lot of different ways. And our guest speakers today are going to be bringing some really insightful thoughts to this situation and how you can apply it to your own business. So, you know, right now, a lot of people are asking, you know, what should I do? And during this time of the year, sort of this March, April, May timeframe, so many of us attend conferences and trade shows and events that give us that understanding of what I should do, let alone the fact that we're in the middle of an unfortunate pandemic. And so we're getting a lot of this, you know, we all are. We're getting a lot of shows canceled. A lot of us attend Adobe Summit, and is a great opportunity to connect, and that's been canceled. We often land in Chicago, Illinois for B2B Online in the month of April. That unfortunately has been rescheduled and canceled for now. Salesforce has something in May that you know, would be right around the corner and would have been a great thing for us to participate. And South by Southwest a few weeks, if not maybe a month ago, also got canceled. And you know, can't believe this happened, but you know, our Olympics got canceled. And so we wanted to try to bring a little bit of that gap in all of our lives where we connect with each other, we learn from each other, we share experiences in the best way we can. And so our webinar today, and hope we're going to do this in more weeks to come, is bringing some insight and some guests to try to fill that void as sort of a panel webinar sort of hybrid situation. So appreciate you all participating, and that's what we're trying to do our part to kind of fill that gap that we normally would be at these different events. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about, you know, what I like to really embrace is the new normal. And the two gentlemen that we have on the phone today are going to talk about a couple things as it relates to getting ready for that new normal, or if you're already in the throes of of getting ready for that new normal, and on the other side of this sort of change in how we're going to operate a business is embracing customer and digital experiences. And the couple of things you're going to hear about are embracing different distribution channels in a different way. You're going to hear about investments and changes around how you think about fulfillment flexibility, about how you incorporate new ways and more nimble ways around pick, pack, ship, and different ways to think about embracing the distribution channels you have in a more fast and nimble fashion. You're going to hear about investments in customer self-service as it relates to online experiences, both B2B and direct to consumer, or D2C. And also about investments in digital marketing. Right now, we are all in our home offices, we're in our basements and our second bedrooms and third bedrooms, and places where we can only do a few things, and that's interact in a digital online experience. And so marketing that way, you're going to hear about a lot today. So with all this stuff, these preparation activities, we believe, leads to success to tomorrow, and I'm excited about what we're going to walk through. So without further ado, let's get started. As I mentioned, Randy Higgins, our Chief Strategy Officer, is going to be facilitating and moderating today. We've got a couple of questions he's going to ask each one of these guys about their businesses and get an overview, and then we're going to open it up at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass it to you, Randy, and we'll get started.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Looking forward to bringing some real thought leaders in the space forward, and allowing all of our audience to interact and ask some questions of them as well. But I'm going to get started, and our first guest speaker is Mr. Chris Howard. He is the head of digital for a company called USG, which is the leading manufacturer of construction materials, and especially drywall and joint compound, based here in Chicago. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Randy. Great to be here.
Great. I'm going to start off just ask you a few questions to get an overview of how you're managing through some of the current situation. First and foremost, you guys manufacture a broad portfolio of building products. Can you give us some insight in the overall state of business activity at USG and what you're seeing in the markets right now?
Yeah, I'll start. I haven't had the chance to speak with you guys yet about this, but you guys at Shift7 have been a great partner and really helped us do some terrific things over the years. In fact, just this Friday, I got Gartner's report ranking the digital IQ for U.S. manufacturers, and for 2020, USG ranked as gifted. So we're a top 10 finisher in back-to-back years with Gartner, which is a credit to a lot of the hard work both the USG and Shift7 teams have put forward over the past few years. So clearly it's been a great partnership for us. And I do want to thank you, and I look forward to breaking the top 10 next year on their 2021. But, as you said, we're a leading manufacturer of building products, walls, ceilings, floors, joint treatment, sheathing, roofing products, right? So it's been a wild couple months for us. The good news is, we are considered as essential. So we remain operational. We have 51 plants in North America. And as of today, we're delivering all the orders, as scheduled. So we're fortunate to have a very strong network and supply chain that's been able to keep our facilities running. And, the plan is to do so as long as our employees are safe and our customers are in need of the product. We're working a lot differently now. So USG is 120 years old, and we've always referred to ourselves as a belly-to-belly company. So it's all about relationships, and those relationships are now cell phone to cell phone or computer to computer. And that's a significant adjustment for us. And speaking with the sales team and customers, there's a lot of focus on finishing open jobs and completing construction that's already underway, but a lot of uncertainty for what's going to happen to jobs that are still in that planning phase. So we'll see if there's, slowdown, or if we come to a screeching halt. There's a lot of, I think, wait and see going on right now. I think one area that I'd highlight or mention, we're seeing significant differences by region. So even though the stay-at-home orders in most of the states are in place. There's a lot of differences in what type of construction is classified as essential. It's all very local. So, the challenges and the trends are more geographically isolated, I think, than what we used to see. You got California, you've got Northern California, you've got New York. I mean, projects are just shut down. But when you look at the Midwest, the job sites are running at a very good clip. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Georgia and South Carolina and Texas kind of opening and lifting those restrictions. I will say for us on the digital side, so, we've been pretty steady. USG traffic dropped by about 20% back in the middle of March, I think, when states started to really order that shelter-in-place protocol. And after it dropped, it leveled off. But what's very interesting is we've seen that traffic come back over the past couple of weeks, where we're now at kind of those historic numbers. And if you look at what people are doing online, at least with us at USG.com, it's encouraging. They're downloading submittals, they're downloading specifications, installation instructions. Half of all visitors that come to our website are downloading something, and those downloads are putting us in jobs. And lastly, another big adjustment for us, I think, has been we are getting a lot more focus internally. More people internally are focused on our website, our email, our social media capabilities, which is great, because we've got a strong need for that content and those new updates. But it's coming in with, I think, a little bit more speed and ferocity than what we're staffed for. But I think it'll be better in the long run for us, and can't complain about, I think, the job security in light of what's going on.
Great. Thanks, Chris, for that update. As you mentioned, you've been undergoing this digital transformation for quite some time now, and really have a lot of maturity in that space. And you personally are the owner of a kind of rolling multi-year digital transformation roadmap that allows you to manage end-to-end customer experience. How are you seeing that investment that you guys have made to date help you navigate this current disruption?
Yeah, so let me take a brief step back and kind of give kind of that larger picture. When I joined USG 2 years ago, I heard nothing but complaints from customers and from sales reps. I mean, the website was awful. It was just a bad experience. It didn't work. It was a big pain point for the company. So, we put together a strategy and an action plan to overhaul just about everything that we do digitally. So I guess looking at where we are today, I'd say, timing was perfect, or at least, we got very lucky with our digital investments, because it took us 2 years to get here with the help of you guys at Shift7, but we've really overhauled everything that we've done. So we launched a PIM, product information, management platform. We implemented, all new search capabilities. We, moved up all of our key documents for download to move them higher up on the pages. I mentioned earlier, we've now got that 2-to-1 ratio of visits to downloads. We're performing very nicely. We updated navigation, the new homepage, all new look and feel. And we created a pretty flexible platform and templates that allow us to create pages and content, I think, with a lot more speed and accuracy. And we can do it all internally. And when I say we can do it internally, we have a team of 3 full-time employees in the digital marketing team. So we're a very small team to be able to do some of the stuff that we're doing. I think the perfect summary, to answer your question is, now that people are working remotely, I find myself on the phone a whole lot more, and I'm interacting a lot more closely with the sales team, than ever before. And we were still close before, but I was on a sales call last week, and one of the sales leaders said that they've heard nothing but good things about USG.com from customers recently, and made it very clear what our situation was 2 years ago. So, we've really gone from being that pain point to the shining star. And I mentioned that traffic was down a little bit, at the start of this pandemic, but, we've got more eyeballs than ever before on our website. So our internal users are on the site more. And obviously that's not, we suppress their numbers from the data. But to me, if I hear no complaints, I'm happy. And the fact that we're hearing good news, that means that our customers are not just complacent, but they're actually happy with what we're delivering. And I think that says an awful lot about what we have put together over the course of the last couple of years.
Great. Hey, Andrew, I think we've got maybe an example on the next slide too of some of the tools that Chris's team has put in place to help their architects. Chris, last question for you, and then, as I said, at the end we'll open this up and let the audience ask you some questions as well. But based on the current situation, and obviously some of our listeners don't have the luxury of having a 2-year runway that you've had in already undertaking this, and maybe they're just getting started. But are there things that are happening in your roadmap right now that are getting prioritized up or down based on the current work from home situation and lack of field sales? And are you seeing any specific requests from your internal or customer stakeholders from a digital perspective? I know you field a lot. You're kind of a traffic control cop in USG when it comes to requests.
Yeah, from a digital perspective, we're being asked to do more, right? So for employees and for customers, without being in the office, I mentioned before, for a belly-to-belly relationship-driven company, it's been difficult. So we've been really asked to help arm our sales team with something that can help them have more meaningful dialogue with customers. So, we increased the priority of a few projects we were working on. Training in particular has always been, a focus for customers and a value add for us. And so we've taken a lot of that time and created an online program. We actually launched just in March now, some great product training tools. So we broke it out in very snackable sized training curriculum for ceilings and wallboards, and we've got some other stuff coming pretty soon. The feedback and analytics is pretty positive. Along those same lines, we've done a lot on remote education. So specifically, we have this, AIA accredited continuing education curriculum. We've actually just today launched a week-long CE symposium. So it's kind of exciting. We're kind of doing that online trade show with 4 different courses being offered and moderated live every day this week. So, we created our COVID page and messaging and resources from customers. But what we're really trying to do is help create reasons, meaningful, impactful, beneficial reasons for us to be calling on customers. I think we've really tried, not to be a part of the noise. I think we've all seen those countless emails, and we get phone calls from companies, that we're sending in. They're not necessarily saying anything new. They're saying very little in many cases, or it's just really it's tone deaf. It's just not right for the market. So I think we've been rather strategic, to market what's important for our customers and not just market for the sake of marketing. So I think that's been pretty key, kind of shifting that push-pull marketing strategy, hopefully limiting the noise and the frequency of communications, but allowing us to optimize each touch point when we do get that opportunity.
Great.
So that's what we've been working on over here.
That's terrific. And thank you so much, Chris. You've got an amazing story and really a shining star in the manufacturing space when it comes to digital innovation. So hopefully we'll keep it rolling through this new normal and continue to provide value to all your stakeholders, both internal and customers. But thanks again, and please hang on the line. We're gonna, as I said, field a few questions from our audience as well. So thanks again. All right, next up I have Christian Wiltrout, who is the president of SureWerx USA. SureWerx is a leading manufacturer of professional tools, equipment, and safety products, primarily in North America, large markets in both Canada and the US, and also a global reach. So thanks, Christian, for joining me here today.
Hey, Randy, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, and maybe just confirm you can hear my sound okay.
Absolutely. You're loud and clear, so thank you.
Awesome.
Christian, you have had a really unique time during this disruption. You guys manufacture a diverse portfolio of products across safety and tool categories, and you happen to serve a lot of diverse markets, and maybe have found yourself a couple of new markets here. Can you give us some insight into what's happening with your business, how you're managing some ramp ups in production, especially you have the PPE category, and in sort of an overarching what you're seeing in the SureWerx business?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Randy. So SureWerx, yeah, we're a global manufacturer in a couple of different segments. So one is we make products that are used in the construction segment. And Chris Howard gave great commentary on construction. I can't add a whole lot to that, and they're doing great work. And obviously USG is a great company. But for us in construction products, it's been very similar to what Chris said, where there's been kind of a region by region changes, a slowdown, not a dramatic slowdown in the construction side, but one where for what we do, we're optimistic that that'll recover. So that's part one of our three. Two is, as you mentioned, the tool and equipment area, and we manufacture tools and equipment that are used in industrial applications and then in automotive and heavy-duty aftermarket applications. That part of the business has slowed down significantly. It's tied very closely to wheels moving on the road, and so trucks are still moving, cars aren't really moving, and so that business has slowed down. And then there's a portion of that tied to oil, and oil is not moving, and that has slowed down as well. But I think the more interesting piece, which is the majority of our business, is the safety products area. And it's been quite a really interesting 8 weeks, probably like for others. Sometimes it feels like a lot longer than 8 weeks. But for us in SureWerx, some of the things we make within our safety product offering are, one is N95 respirators, and then another is face shields. And so anybody who's been watching the news has seen a lot of information about a really drastic shortage in those products. And so what we've been focused on is heavily on the supply side. And most face shields is a good example. Most face shields that are used in North America are made in Asia. We make face shields in Asia. We also make face shields in the U.S. And so what we've been focused on is accelerating our USA production of face shields. And we're super fortunate that we can help. We make something that's needed right now. And so that business has accelerated as we have a combination of like a demand shock where there's way more product needed than was needed before, and also a supply shock where the Asia-based production is consumed, and then also the supply lines from Asia to the U.S. are kind of clogged. And so sort of feels almost like a once in a career type of thing, certainly different from anything I've ever seen. But again, we're kind of, humbled and really, really fortunate as a company that we can help during the COVID crisis.
Yeah, amazing work you're doing, and I know that you have been working around the clock to get your supply ramped up to really help those frontline workers. So much appreciated, I think, from all the communities. So you took over SureWerx USA last year, and I know one of the things that was top of mind from you right out of the gate was to really accelerate and become highly focused on digital transformation, particularly with your reseller channels. Can you give us some kind of information on how that investment that you've made to date and some of the activities that you've undertaken have helped to drive your ability to manage through this current disruption?
Yeah, sure. So for us, I think of it as like a channel strategy. In our channel strategy, one way to look at it is like it exists to accelerate our growth. And within that, at a top level, we kind of want to do two things. One is we want to enable end users to get our product the way they want to get our product. Maybe not the way we would prefer that they get our product, but if an end user wants our product, we want them to be able to get the product the way they want. And I think, many of us have experienced how they want to get the product has changed, and it continues to change. And I think that change is accelerating in the last 8 weeks, even faster than it had been in the 8 weeks prior to that, which was faster than it had been in the year prior to that. So one, we want to enable that end user. We want to influence them to understand that our product resolves whatever problem they're trying to solve, and then we want to provide them the product the way they want to get it. And then two, second part of that is support our distribution partners with our digital presence. And those two put together, we think we can have a channel strategy that accelerates our growth. Now, underneath that, the actions that we've been focused on are one is essentially a product information capability. We make some products that are simpler, like like a hard hat, for example. Although there's lots of different hard hats that work in different ways, and for an individual that's going to use it to protect their head, in this case, they care about the particulars of that. But it's a fairly simple product. We also make, I don't know if you can see in the picture, I think you can on the guy on the right, fall protection devices. So that's a life protecting device where you're working on the edge of a building, and so we've developed and we continue to develop an effective product information capability. Lots of those fall protection devices are purchased online by an individual who's never consulting with a salesperson, and they are going to use it in kind of a life protecting type of situation. And so the product information capability is one. Two is like a product marketing capability. And then third, I think, important for us within SureWerx to remember is we've done a lot of work and have a lot more to do on our supply chain capability, because as we influence users in digital channels, which in some ways are non-traditional to our core, and they then buy our product in those channels, the supply chain capabilities we have to ultimately fulfill that or close the loop, if you will, are different from what they would have been years ago. And so that's kind of the background, I guess, Randy, on what we've been focused on. And I'll just tell you, like, that that isn't changing for us. Like, that's not changing for us as a result of the COVID crisis. I think it's accelerating. If anything, probably the way that it's changing is it's accelerating. There's lots of users of product. If you take face shields and personal protective equipment for an example, they're looking for ways to get product, and they're looking to partners that can provide it, and those are non-traditional. For instance, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday in the news, the federal government in Canada is leaning heavily on Amazon for their supply chain for PPE, and they've selected Amazon over Canada Post. Canada Post would have been the traditional supply chain partner. Like, they've selected a different partner for a variety of reasons. And so, if anything, I think what's happening now is just it's sort of accelerating what we already saw rather than fundamentally changing that game.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think when you went through your channel strategy, there was a heavy focus on strong e-commerce resellers in that channel strategy, with the anticipation that was the buying behavior that people were going to shift to. And obviously, I think this has accelerated it, to your point, based on all the e-commerce numbers we're seeing from the distributors. Just one last question, Christian, and then, like I said, we'll kind of open it up to the audience to ask a couple. Just based on the current situation, and I know you guys are scrambling around the clock on the supply side, as you said, with some of your product lines, are there any specific things beyond supply chain and ramping up production that you guys are bringing into prioritization based on the current disruption that's happening? I think that's...
Yeah, there are. I mean, so yeah, like, job one is there are enough face shields to protect people. So that's number one, is like, how can we make more face shields in Illinois and Michigan and the plants that we have there and get those delivered? So that's a big focus. I would say beyond that, how priorities are shifting a little bit. One, like, we're fortunate that we can, be in a spot to try to help. Two, like probably a lot of companies, when there's economic uncertainty, like, we're evaluating investments carefully. Like, we always should do that, but it causes pause on, like, big investments, more than it might have, a year's time ago from now. But big picture, we're staying our course. I think, and as non-traditional channels are looking to help end users that need help, we're a partner for that. I think, if I had to make one other thing that, Randy, is maybe a little different, and I think Chris Howard alluded to this nicely around, like, having a message that's relevant right now. Like, you can see our homepage, like, we're trying to keep that relevant. And if you scroll down and if you look at some of our other web presence, like, as a company that leads with safety, like, that's relevant. It's less relevant to focus on, like, tool and equipment right now. So it's maybe that's the other change, is kind of like an event specific need to be relevant and not, appear to be tone deaf. But if we needed a selfish reason to do that, it would be because those are the things that people actually need help with right now. So it's kind of, I would say it's like shifted our message a little bit, from a marketing standpoint.
That's great. That's great. Thanks again for joining us, Christian, and really good insight. And thank you again, just from kind of a community perspective, for helping so much with the frontline workers and supporting them in this. I think now we're just if Chris and Christian are on the line, I think we'll open up and field a few questions, Chrissa, from the audience, if we can.
Sure. So everyone can access the Q&A portion on the top right-hand side of their screen. You can publish questions anonymously or send them through to us there.
Yeah, while those are coming through, Chrissa and Randy, just want to say, Chris and Christian, thanks so much again. I think, you know, in Chris, your case with USG, what a great example of preparation. And while, you know, I know you didn't know that a pandemic was around the corner when you set your roadmap. You know, just imagine the situation that you may be in if you didn't have done that preparation. You know, you mentioned that the sales teams are more connected. You get such great feedback about the online presence. And while it's actually been so helpful for just, you know, normal business conditions, how great of a situation are you in now because of the investments you made. And I think that's a really cool kind of way to look back and reflect. And then from Christian's perspective on USG, like you said, Randy, you know, I think helping out in a big time way, and or the way the world needs it is there. But this is a business, and as he mentioned, I think accelerating things and being tone appropriate to things is really how they've made some good shifts and pivots in their business to support. So good insights.
Great. Got any questions, Chrissa?
Yeah, so we can get started here. The first question we have is, how are you driving net new business without trade shows? What strategies are you using?
Question.
So it's Christian. I'm happy to comment on that one, and obviously Chris may want to as well. But I mean, for us, like sales is a lot of my background, and I mean, this is got our world, you know, upside down. If you're a sales professional, thinking about your normal day, and we SureWerx, it sounds like USG might have been the same. You know, it like the conventional wisdom is there's like a lot of a face-to-face component to it. But I would say we've been able to be remarkably productive with our sales team, mainly through implementing some ideas that were not mine, which is we've implemented like an enormous amount of structure with our sales teams. So we have outside sales, we have inside-based sales professionals, and we have customer service people and marketing, like any company. But the ones that are like caught off guard by this is our outside sales team, who they're used to, you know, leave home, travel, see customers every week. What we've done to engage and keep productivity internally within the team is, as I said, implemented an enormous amount of structure. So we have daily sales team calls. As a matter of fact, in one of our U.S. businesses, we have a daily all sales team call, which to me, saying it almost sounds kind of crazy. Like, that's not the conventional wisdom, but it's been remarkably productive for us to tackle issues really quickly. And I think if I sort of like translate that or project that onto not our internal interactions, but then our interactions that we have with our customers, you know, they're sitting in their home office as well. Like the people that we would normally go meet with, they're in their home office as well. And when we have a relevant thing to talk about, you know, they want to talk about it too. And we actually can get a whole lot of work done that way virtually we use you know, Zoom and Microsoft Teams and things like that. We actually been able to get a whole lot of work done. And what's been interesting to me too is I found, because everybody's up against the same cultural change, or, you know, new reality, or whatever term you want to use, I found you can actually build relationships with people, like, and that's a big deal in sales. And the conventional wisdom is you got to be face to face to do that. And I would challenge that. And you know, to close out my comments on this one, like, so it's a lot of structure to staying in front of customers with a relevant message. And then I think just, you know, just just keeping the team, keeping close cycles on things and staying very engaged has been really good for us. And I think some things will change for the long term. Like I don't know if it's in a huge way or a small, medium-sized way, but I think some things around how sales engage with customers will permanently change, even when we get back to more of a traditional kind of a normal.
Yeah, I think Christian said it, very eloquently, but, I mean, Andrew showed it at the beginning, and trade shows have stopped. Our trade shows have stopped. Home Depot, who's a big, purchaser of ours on the retail side, they stopped their trade shows. But I think the result is a better connectivity internally and better connectivity with the sales team, where we're able to identify, I think, issues and help tackle them. I also agree with Christian. I mean, I think as a result of this, we're going to find, self-service, and digital information and, the ability to order product and the digital training. I think we're going to see digital play a much larger role. And I think that's been something that I think has been pushed off in the past, but I think we'll see that probably come to the forefront a lot quicker than we were expecting.
Yeah, this is Andrew. I just want to add to that the daily check-ins. I think almost every organization is or should be doing that. And man, Christian, to your point, it's been, even for us as a business, just those daily check-ins that we started out as a connection is now turned into just a really high-performing, easy thing that we're all doing. And I think it's so much goodness has come out of it. It's something that probably, like yourself, we're going to continue on in kind of post-pandemic, whenever that happens, as just a general practice. And it's bringing people closer together. And I think that's really cool.
Chris, maybe we'll take time for one more quick question. I know we're
Sure.
getting a little over here, but if Chris and Christian are up for it, maybe one more would be good.
Cool. So another question we received was, both were great examples of online portal capability. What have you been concentrating on within the factory in terms of digital roadmap and handling ramp up of production?
I'll turn that over to Christian. Might be a better person to speak to that. We don't, at least my group, we don't touch a whole lot in the factory. I can tell you that, we did create, and we've been meeting a little bit more regularly, I think, as everyone does, kind of this digital innovation team. And so we do have key players from my side. We have key players within our CIC, which is our innovation center. We've got some key players from the manufacturing and the factory side. So we're a little bit more aware, I think, of some of those things, but we have not progressed far enough, I think, that we've got any information to share as to how we've been able to help, I think, digitalize the factories there.
I think, for us, I think the general question, Chris, is like, how do you translate this to the manufacturing and production world? I'm not sure my answer either will get right at the heart of the question, but the biggest thing for us has been trying to shorten the cycle to translate a customer need to the development of a product and then a closed loop of feedback. And that's been really challenging and really cool to see. Like we need to develop a new product and commercialize it and launch it in like 8 days. And so how do you do that? Like the conventional wisdom would be that's not possible. One example of how we did it, and this isn't like any great mega innovation, but sometimes sometimes the best innovation, I think, is one that you can actually do. It may not be the coolest idea, but it's one that you can actually accomplish. So like we have a new face shield that we launched. We did that one in 8 days, but essentially what it is we have puzzle pieces that can make products. We can make components and we can assemble those into products. And so we looked for components that were in lower demand that we could assemble those pieces into a different puzzle, like basically translating into a different end product. And it's one that we would have never thought of or would have never done absent someone saying, like, New York needs 27,000 face shields like right now, and they don't exist anywhere, and how do you do that? So I think maybe I would summarize it just by saying for us, the manufacturing side of it is just been trying to shorten the cycle and communicate the need and then commercialize things way faster than what we would typically be able to do.
Yeah, that makes great sense. And I think, Chris, you're being a little humble there because I know you guys did a lot of work on your order to cash cycles and being able to expose inventory levels and availability dates and things like that to customers through self-service tools, over the past year. So I think, while that's not transforming the actual manufacturing process, I think giving that transparency to the customer of that type of supply chain information is critically important from a digital perspective. Hey, Krista let me know that there's one more really good question. So if you guys are up for it, I'd love to get your response to that maybe, since we have so many folks on the line.
Yeah, we're good on time, Randy. Let's do more.
Okay.
Cool. So the question is, everyone is fighting for dollars right now. For Chris, how are you presenting to executives to get them to put budget in your hands? And Christian, what is the best way for we as the doers to approach you to get that budget? Basically, how do we get our CEO president to see the importance of these projects?
So I can start. We're in a very fortunate position based on what we've been able to accomplish and based on the feedback and what we're hearing from, internal and external customers. Right now, today, our sales team is not doing what they've typically done. And, they're trying to work within the new norm that we are working in, under this work from home pandemic. But digitally, things have not necessarily changed, right? We still see a tremendous number of customers coming to our website. They're still doing the things we want them to do, which is building with our products. And so if this does anything, I think it shines a spotlight on us as to, the importance of digital, the disruptor that it is. And I think as we kind of fast forward a couple years out, I think digital is going to play a much larger role in allowing customers to self-service. So in fact, we had a call with our CEO, recently, and he's asking, what can we be doing in the very short term to help our customers, as well as our sales teams, with things they need now to help their businesses. And then, strategically, what can we be doing, a year from now, 2 years from now, and making sure that we stay in front of it. So I think there's never been a better time for us to be asking for money and to be able to show, the fact that you're not paying, one new visitor to the website doesn't cost us any more than, one fewer. So, we're a terrific, I think, option for us to continue to invest in. And we've had nothing but, we have a great leadership team. So maybe it's different at other places, but they've been nothing but supportive and really, I think, recognize the need to continue to invest in the platform.
And you've been spending a lot of time, Chris, to build up data to support that and be able to present real information to your executive team, I know. Yeah, go ahead, Christian. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, influencing people to your agenda. When that topic, I always think of a book I read a long time ago called Getting Things Done When You're Not in Charge. And it's basically a stakeholder model for how you influence people. And what I figured out after a while was that the more you are in charge, actually, the more important that book is, because you can just tell people to do something, but if they don't, believe in it, it's not going to be supported. It's not going to be sustainable, and ultimately it'll collapse and fail. And so it's influencing. I think what's different now is if you're in a company where your reality has changed recently, which in my company it certainly has. Our reality is different than it was just a couple of months ago, and that reality translates to different needs of the business. And if your financial condition of your company is affected by this, typically what happens is, things are on a shorter cycle. So I think Chris kind of mentioned this. You're looking for what can we do now that can impact now? And in some companies, you just don't have the luxury at this exact moment of thinking out into the future as far as you might like to, or at least investing as much for the 2-year, 3, 5-year horizons. And so that's one thought I have is, can you slightly shift things to, what can we do that can have an effect now? That plays great if you're thinking, digital sales and marketing. It's a nice fit because you can try and test things really fast and get feedback. You can do things on a small scale. You can invest in Google or Amazon channel or things like that on a small scale. You can do a trial, and you can learn much faster than you can by launch a new product to a 100-person sales force and get meetings and put it in CRM. Like, that's really slow in comparison. So I think it plays nicely to that side of the overall agenda. And then maybe my last idea is I'll take the other side of the coin. Like, you've got to think shorter term, but like for us anyway, for SureWerx, like there's like 3 priorities in this thing. One is, try to make sure our own people are safe and their families are protected and so forth. 2 is like, can we help or make a difference? And then the third that I haven't mentioned before is can we come out of this situation stronger than what we went into it? And that's the piece of it that does say, hey, yeah, I hear you, it's short term, but you got to keep one eye on the future. So is there like a subset of activities you can do that can deliver some kind of result quickly, but also contribute to building a foundation for the long-term future? Because I think anytime the economy is hurt or maybe almost crippled like it could be from what we're having now, some companies won't come out of it. Some will come out of it weaker than they went in. And at the end of it, it'll kind of be saying, okay, what do we do now? But can you be one that comes out stronger? And if you can, then your growth will accelerate on the other side of it, and you'll take a whole lot of share from your competitors. So I guess, Randy, that's how I kind of think about it.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to just thank both of you so much for joining us today. I think you've shared some terrific insight with your peers, and as Andrew said, we're going to try and keep this series going and help to get some more peer-to-peer interaction. But thank you both again for joining. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Yeah. Thanks, Randy, and thanks you too. I really commend you for what you've done in your own respective businesses, and I know everyone's benefit a lot from this today. And look, these guys are 2 great guys on a personal level. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. I believe they'll probably accept your invitation, and you can connect with them. As far as we're at the 45-minute mark here. As far as what's next. We're going to be coming and trying to bring this sort of absent of trade shows and conferences and just work from home, another webinar event in 2 weeks from now. So look for those invitations coming out. 2 other great guests are going to be on the docket, and so look for that in the coming days, that invitation as well. But thanks to everybody who dedicated some time here. We're going to sign off here on our Start Now webinar from Shift7. So thanks again. Have a great Tuesday. Chris and Christian, thanks again, and we'll all see you and talk soon.